She stood alone in the middle of the crowded neighborhood cafe, her hands trembling slightly as she stared up at the brightly lit menu board. The room buzzed with noise, people talking, cups clashing, machines humming, but none of it reached her ears. She couldn't hear the fast orders, the impatient sighs, the tapping fingers behind her. She lived in a silent world and understood only the shape of people's mouths, the movement of their eyes, the pressure of their body language. But today even those signals felt too loud, too sharp, too overwhelming. She tried to match the photos on the menu with the words she had memorized earlier, but her mind felt foggy. She pulled out her phone to type her order, but her fingers shook and the letters came out wrong. She erased them, typed again, erased again. Her throat tightened with frustration. She could feel the people behind her shifting in line, stepping closer as if pushing her forward without touching her. She didn't have to hear their voices to know what they were thinking. She saw their eyebrows raise, their lips pressed together, their glances shared in irritation. A woman behind her whispered something to her partner. He shrugged, then smirked. The barista called out loudly for the next customer, clearly annoyed that she was taking too long. But she didn't move. She couldn't. She wanted to run away. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to shrink herself small enough to fit inside her heartbeat so the world would stop looking at her. They didn't know she was deaf. They didn't know she was trying her hardest. They didn't know she was the daughter of a billionaire who had spent her life hidden away in a guarded mansion, kept far from crowds, far from noise, far from people who might hurt her. Her father had built walls around her with good intentions, but those walls also stole her freedom. She longed to do simple things, ordering her own coffee, walking without security, meeting people without someone watching every step she took. So she escaped, sneakily, bravely, foolishly, depending on how one looked at it, just to experience a normal day. And here she was, trapped by something as small as a menu board. Her hands shook harder. Her breathing grew uneven. Her chest tightened. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. She typed again, but the letters blurred, and she finally lowered her phone in defeat. The barista yelled, "If you don't know what to order, please step aside." She didn't hear the words, but she saw the tone in his expression. She froze, shoulders shrinking, feeling the heat of embarrassment rising in her cheeks. She wished she could disappear. Then a warm hand gently touched her shoulder. She turned around quickly, startled, expecting another impatient stranger. But instead she saw a man, probably in his early 30s, with tired eyes that held a softness she had not seen in a long time. His shirt sleeves were slightly rolled, his shoes worn, and his hair messy in a way that made him look like he had rushed from somewhere important. There was no judgment in his eyes, no impatience, only a strange, steady kind of understanding. She stared at him, unsure if he was about to tell her off or ask her to hurry. But then his hands moved. Slowly, calmly, familiar. He was signing. "Are you okay?" Her breath caught. She blinked, shocked, unsure if she had imagined it. People rarely signed to her. Even fewer signed correctly. But he had used the exact hand shapes, the exact pace, clear enough for her to understand even through her panic. She stared at him, confused and relieved at the same time. Her lips parted in disbelief. Before she could respond, he signed again. Slow, gentle, patient. "Do you want help?" The line behind them went still. The whispering stopped. The barista's irritation faded into confusion. Even the couple who had rolled their eyes earlier looked surprised, suddenly realizing the girl they had judged wasn't just slow or impractical or dramatic. She was deaf, struggling alone in a place that refused to slow down for her. Her eyes softened. Her shaking hands slowly rose as she signed back. "Yes, please." Her fingers trembled mid-movement, and he noticed. Without hesitation, he stepped beside her instead of in front of her, as if silently promising he wasn't taking her place. He was standing with her. He signed, "What do you want to order?" She tried to speak with her hands, but her fingers stumbled. She felt her face heat with embarrassment again. He waited patiently. No rush, no sigh, no frustration, just calm. She finally signed her drink, an iced caramel coffee with extra light ice. A simple order. But to her, it felt like lifting a mountain. He nodded, smiled, and turned to the barista. Iced caramel coffee, light ice, please. The barista blinked, guilt spreading across his face. Oh, I didn't know it's fine, the man said gently, not raising his voice. Just make the drink. She watched him, absorbing every movement. Everything about him felt different from the world she had been running from. When the drink arrived, he signed, "Here you go." She took it gently, her fingers brushing his for a second. She felt warmth, unexpected, unfamiliar, but safe. She signed, "Thank you. Thank you so much. I couldn't. I didn't." She paused, shaking slightly from the emotion she was trying to hide. He smiled softly. His eyes looked tired but kind, filled with the quiet strength of someone who understood what it meant to struggle silently. Then he signed, "My daughter is deaf too. I know how hard it is sometimes." Her breath stopped for a moment. The world grew still around her. She felt her heart beat slow in her chest. His daughter was deaf. Everything made sense now. The slow signing, the gentle patience, the way he didn't make her feel stupid or dramatic. He understood her world because he lived inside it too. She signed carefully. "How old is she?" "6, he said aloud and signed at the same time. "She's 6. She nodded, imagining a little girl with tiny hands and bright eyes who used the same silent language she did. A smile tugged at the corner of her lips. She wanted to ask more, about his daughter, about him, about how he learned to sign so clearly, but she hesitated. She didn't want to bother him. She didn't want to take more of his time. She didn't want to give him a reason to walk away like most people did. But he didn't walk away. He stayed. He didn't seem bothered that she took longer than others or that she needed help. He didn't stand above her or beside her. He stood with her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel broken. She didn't feel less. She didn't feel like a burden. She felt normal. He signed, "Do you come here often?" She shook her head quickly. "No. First time." She hesitated, then added, "I wanted to try something on my own." He nodded slowly, understanding more than she expected. "You did great," he signed. Her eyes glistened. She looked down at her drink because she didn't want him to see how much his words mattered. People rarely told her she did great. Most told her she needed help. Most told her she needed protection. Most told her she couldn't be alone. But he looked at her like she wasn't helpless. Like she wasn't fragile. Like she wasn't a problem that needed fixing. He looked at her like she was a normal young woman trying to figure out her place in the world. He stepped aside, signing, "Can I sit with you?" "Only if you want." She nodded immediately. Too fast. Too eager. She blushed and lowered her head. They walked to a quiet corner table. She sat down across from him, holding her drink like it was a lifeline. Her heart pounded. She tried to steady her breathing. She didn't know why she felt so nervous. Maybe because it was the first time she had talked to someone outside her father's security team. Maybe because he was the first man who had ever looked at her without seeing money or danger or disability. Maybe because she had never met someone who could reach her world so easily. He sat down, leaning forward a little in a friendly way, signing slowly so she could read every movement. "I'm Daniel," he said. "What's your name?" She signed her name, and he repeated it, his lips shaping it carefully, respectfully. He didn't try to shorten it or make fun of it. He didn't treat her like someone strange. Her heart softened at the simple kindness. They talked, signing back and forth. He asked polite questions, nothing invasive or harsh. He told her small stories about his daughter, how she loved drawing, how she liked to dance even if she couldn't hear the music. She laughed silently, covering her mouth, imagining the little girl twirling without rhythm but full of joy. Her eyes sparkled in a way they hadn't in years. And Daniel noticed. He memorized the way her eyes lit up. He memorized the hope returning to her face. Something warm tugged inside his chest, but he ignored it, for now. She told him, slowly and carefully, that she was trying to learn how to do things on her own. That she didn't want bodyguards anymore. That she wanted to see the world without fear. He didn't judge her. He just nodded, encouraging her gently. But then his expression changed slightly when she told him she came alone. He signed, "It's dangerous. You should be careful." She nodded. She knew that. But she also knew she couldn't stay locked away forever. Suddenly, her phone started vibrating non-stop. Dozens of messages. Dozens of missed calls. The color drained from her face. She looked up at Daniel with frightened eyes. He signed, "Is everything okay?" She shook her head slowly. "My father. He will be here soon." And just like that, the peaceful moment shattered. The cafe door swung open. Men in black suits rushed in. People turned, startled. Daniel looked at them, confused, then looked back at her trembling hands. She typed fast on her phone and showed him one message. "Where are you? Stay where you are. We are coming." Daniel finally understood. She wasn't just a deaf girl trying to order coffee. She wasn't just scared or shy. She was someone important, someone protected, someone watched, someone sheltered. Someone who had broken rules to feel human. The security guards spotted her. She froze. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. Not fear for himself, but fear for her. She looked at him with wide, panicked eyes. She signed, "I don't want to go back. Not yet." And Daniel, the tired single dad who had only come to buy coffee after dropping his daughter at school, realized he had stepped into a world much bigger than he expected. But he didn't move away from her. He didn't abandon her. He stayed seated beside her, calm and steady, as if silently saying, "You're not alone." Not anymore. The moment the security guards entered the cafe, the air changed. Conversations died. People moved aside, whispering, staring at the men in black suits as they spread out, scanning every corner like they were searching for a dangerous criminal instead of a frightened young woman trying to drink coffee in peace. She stiffened, her fingers curling tight around her cup, her shoulders trembling with the kind of fear she had carried her whole life. Fear of being dragged back into a golden cage she never chose. Daniel watched her, seeing the panic rise in her eyes, the way she pressed herself smaller in her seat, as if trying to become invisible. He didn't fully understand her world yet, but he understood fear, and he understood what it felt like to be cornered. She looked at him with wide eyes, silently begging him not to leave her alone in this moment. She signed with shaking hands, "Please don't go." He nodded without hesitation. "I'm here." The guards finally spotted her across the cafe, and one of them rushed over with a mixture of relief and frustration on his face. He spoke too fast, too loudly. Though she couldn't hear a single word, she could understand from his expression that he was scolding her. His hands moved sharply, signing angrily, "You cannot run away like this. Your father is worried. We searched everywhere." She shrank under his harsh gestures, her body curling inward. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest, a protective instinct rising like a quiet flame. He stood up slowly, placing himself slightly in front of her, not blocking the guard, but not letting him overwhelm her either. He signed calmly but firmly, "She is scared. Lower your voice. She is not a criminal." The guard blinked, startled that someone spoke her language. He didn't expect that. No one usually did. He adjusted his stance awkwardly, his expression softening a little, but the tension remained. Behind him, more guards entered the cafe, clearing a space as if they were escorting royalty. And in a way, they were. A tall man in a dark suit walked in, older, powerful-looking, with silver hair and eyes that scanned the room with sharp intelligence. He wasn't loud, he wasn't aggressive, but his presence carried weight. The kind of weight that came from running an empire. Her father. The billionaire everyone feared yet respected. He stopped when he saw his daughter sitting in the corner, her hands trembling, her eyes red from the fear the situation had caused. A silent sigh escaped him as he walked toward her. The cafe remained frozen, watching the scene like it was something out of a movie. Daniel felt suddenly small standing there, wondering if he had crossed a line by getting involved, wondering if this powerful man would see him as a threat or a stranger who had no place standing beside his daughter. But she reached out and grabbed Daniel's sleeve gently, almost instinctively, pulling him back down beside her. Her father noticed the gesture. He stopped walking. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, confusion, and something deeper. Something protective. She signed rapidly at her father, her hands moving with urgency, her expression full of emotion. Don't be angry. He helped me. I couldn't order my drink. He talked to me. He was kind. Daniel watched her father's face as he tried to follow her signs. He understood most of them. He had taken lessons years ago for her. But he wasn't fluent enough to catch the small details. He turned to the closest guard. What did she say? The guard translated, stumbling through the signs, but Daniel could tell some parts were wrong. Before he could stop himself, Daniel stepped forward and signed clearly, slowly, directly to the father. She said she was scared. She said I helped her order coffee. She said I was kind to her. She wants you to know she is safe. The father's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in focus, as he took in Daniel's fluent signs. It shocked him. It softened him. It made him curious. He studied the young man standing protectively beside his daughter, noticing the worn-out shoes, the simple clothes, the tired eyes. This wasn't someone trying to use her. This wasn't someone pretending. This wasn't someone who approached her for fame or money. This was someone who understood her world because he lived close to it. He asked quietly, "You know sign language well?" Daniel nodded. "My daughter is deaf." The billionaire paused. Something in his chest loosened. Something shifted. He looked at his daughter again. Really looked. Her eyes were brighter than he had seen in weeks. Her posture wasn't broken or tight. She looked alive, free, understood. She hadn't looked like this in years. He let out a long breath and sat down across from them. The guards, now confused, backed away. The entire cafe relaxed, though the tension was still thick. His daughter looked from her father to Daniel, unsure what would happen next. She signed softly, "Please don't yell at me." Her father's heart cracked visibly. He shook his head, signing slowly, apologetically, "I'm not angry. I was scared." She lowered her gaze, guilt filling her eyes. He gently lifted her chin, making her look at him. He signed again, "You are my only child. I want you safe." Daniel watched, realizing this father wasn't a monster like she feared, just a man terrified of losing the only person he cared about. But she signed something next that made her father's face fall. "I don't want to live trapped anymore." The words hit him harder than he expected. His shoulders slumped for the first time. He looked down, struggling with emotions he rarely showed in public. She continued with trembling hands, "I want to talk to people. I want to do small things. I want to feel normal." Her father swallowed hard. He signed slowly, "I never wanted you to feel trapped." She hesitated, then pointed at Daniel. "He made me feel normal today." Her father turned toward Daniel again. Daniel expected anger, suspicion, something heavy. But instead, the billionaire spoke softly, "Thank you." Daniel nodded, unsure what to say. The father continued, "My daughter rarely smiles with strangers. She rarely leaves the house." He paused, his expression softening in a way no one in the cafe expected to see. "You helped her feel seen." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He simply signed, "She's brave. She did everything. I just translated her courage." The billionaire exhaled, almost smiling. For a few moments, no one spoke. They all sat there, three people from completely different worlds, connected by the silent language that bridged the distance between them. But then she signed something that changed everything. "Can I spend a little more time outside? With him?" Her father froze. The guard stiffened. Daniel's heart jumped. She looked at her dad with pleading eyes, eyes full of hope and fear. "Just 1 hour," she added with a trembling smile. Her father looked at Daniel, reading his sincerity. He saw no threat, no hidden motive, only kindness. A father who understood silence. A man who had nothing but still offered everything. After a long pause, the billionaire nodded. She gasped, covering her mouth with joy. Her father signed, 1 hour. "I trust him. Stay near public places." Daniel nodded, promising silently to protect her. She stood up, holding her drink tightly, turning toward Daniel with a shy, excited smile. He felt something unfamiliar bloom inside him, a gentle pull toward her courage, toward the quiet bond forming between them. As they stepped out of the cafe together, leaving the guards watching from a respectful distance, she walked beside Daniel with her shoulders straight, her step steady, her heart lighter than it had been in years. And Daniel realized something powerful. This was not just a moment of helping a stranger. This was the beginning of something neither of them expected. Something meaningful. Something life-changing. Something that would test him, change her, and shake two very different worlds. Because for the first time, she wasn't the billionaire's deaf daughter. She was just a girl holding coffee, smiling shyly at a single dad who understood her silence. And for the first time, he wasn't just a tired father. He was someone important to someone who had never been allowed to choose anyone before. When they stepped out of the cafe, the world felt different for both of them. The sunlight felt softer on her skin, the breeze felt gentler, and even the noise she couldn't hear looked peaceful instead of frightening. She walked beside Daniel like someone learning how to breathe for the first time. Her steps were small at first, hesitant, unsure, but every time she looked at him and saw the calm in his eyes, she found a little more courage. He didn't rush her. He didn't walk ahead. He matched her pace like he could see exactly how hard she was trying just to be outside without fear. The guards followed at a distance, giving them space but staying close enough to protect her. She kept glancing back nervously, afraid they would take her home the second her father changed his mind. Daniel noticed her worry and signed slowly. "You're okay. You're not doing anything wrong." She nodded, though the fear didn't fully fade. They walked toward the park nearby, where children played and people laughed, unaware of the silent struggle happening inside her heart. She watched the kids running, chasing each other, falling and rising again without fear. She had never grown up like that. Her world had always been a perfectly controlled bubble. Private tutors, locked gates, security walls, planned visits, and a long list of rules meant to keep her safe but also keep her isolated. Her father loved her fiercely, but his love became fear, and his fear became walls. And for years, she had accepted those walls because she believed she couldn't survive outside them. Until today. Today she had stepped out alone. Today she ordered a drink, yes, with difficulty, but still on her own. Today she met someone who didn't treat her like a fragile object wrapped in money. Daniel noticed her staring at the children and signed carefully, "Do you want to sit?" She nodded. They went to a bench under a tree. She sat with her shoulders close to his, not touching, but close enough to feel comfort from his presence. For a few minutes, they didn't talk. She watched the world with eyes full of hunger and awe. He watched her with eyes full of quiet understanding. Finally, she signed, "Thank you for staying with me." He smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me. I just did what anyone should do." She shook her head firmly. "No. People don't help me. They stare. They judge. They pity. You didn't." He exhaled, realizing how deep her loneliness must have been, how much she had carried silently. "I know how hard it is," he signed. "My daughter went through the same when she started school. People didn't understand her." Her eyes softened even more. She wanted to know everything about his daughter, everything about him. She signed slowly, "Where is her mother?" He paused. A shadow crossed his eyes. He looked down at his hands before signing. "She left when our daughter got sick. She couldn't handle the responsibility." Her heart cracked. She imagined a tiny girl, confused, scared, waking up in a silent world, only to see one parent walk away. She signed gently, "That must have hurt." He nodded. "It did. But I had to stay strong for my daughter. She needs someone who won't run away." Her fingers tightened around her drink. She signed, "You didn't give up on her." "Never," he signed. "She's my world." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. She didn't see pity in his eyes. She didn't see fear. She didn't even see admiration. She saw something warm, something honest, something safe. And Daniel didn't see power or wealth in her. He saw a young woman fighting to feel normal, fighting to live, fighting to be seen. Then she signed something that surprised both of them. "Can I meet your daughter?" Daniel blinked, unsure if he heard right. He signed slowly, "Are you sure?" She nodded immediately. Her heart beat fast, but not from fear. This time, it was excitement. She signed, "I want to meet someone like me. Someone who understands." His expression softened with warmth. She would be happy. She loves meeting new people. Before Daniel could say more, her phone vibrated. Her father was calling again. Her shoulders tensed. The guards looked at her, waiting. She looked at Daniel, fear in her eyes again, as if this moment might end. He reached out gently, not touching her, but placing his hand close enough that she could feel the comfort of his presence. He signed, "It's okay. Tell him you're safe." She nodded slowly, answering the call. She typed a quick message, "I'm with Daniel. We are in the park. Please don't be angry." She sent it and waited, her breath shallow, her fingers trembling slightly. A moment later, her phone buzzed again. Her father's reply came, "Stay where you are. I'm coming to talk." Her heart dropped. She looked at Daniel anxiously. He signed, "It's okay. I'll stay with you." She clutched her cup tightly, trying to steady her breathing. When her father arrived, he was not angry. He looked tired, worried, but not angry. He dismissed the guards a little and approached her slowly, sitting on the bench opposite her. He signed carefully, "You scared me today." She looked down, ashamed. "I'm sorry." "I'm not angry," he signed again. "Just afraid. The world is not always kind." She pointed at Daniel, her eyes bright and firm. "But it is sometimes." Her father looked at Daniel again, reading something in his face. A quiet strength, a gentle nature, and a sincerity money couldn't buy. He rubbed his forehead slowly, then signed something surprising, "You want to see the world." "I know. I just don't want to lose you." She blinked, her eyes filling with emotion. He continued, "Maybe I can allow you more freedom. With someone I trust." She looked at Daniel instantly. Daniel's eyes widened slightly, not expecting such a responsibility. Her father continued, speaking out loud now, with his voice low and honest. "You helped her today. You didn't use her. You didn't ask for anything. You treated her like a person, not a possession." Daniel swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Her father then said something that changed everything. "If you're willing," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "I would like you to guide her a little. Help her learn things. Help her feel safe outside." She gasped softly, looking back and forth between them. Daniel stared at the father, shocked. "Sir, I'm just a coffee shop stranger." Her father shook his head. "No. You're the first person in years who made her feel like she belongs." The air grew still between them. She reached for Daniel's hand without thinking, her fingers brushing his gently. He felt something warm, something powerful, something he didn't want to let go. Her father stood, placing a hand on her shoulder. He signed, "1 hour is not enough. You can have more time, but stay close. And stay safe." Then he left them alone again, trusting Daniel more than he trusted anyone outside his family. As her father walked away, she turned back to Daniel, her eyes glowing with a mix of joy and disbelief. She signed softly, "I want to meet your daughter." And Daniel, overwhelmed but smiling, signed, "Then let's make that happen." They walked out of the park together, side by side, stepping into a world she was finally ready to explore, with him. And neither of them realized that this quiet afternoon was the beginning of something unforgettable, something deep, something that would change their lives and the lives of everyone around them forever. The drive to Daniel's home felt like a journey through two different worlds slowly blending into one. She sat in the passenger seat, holding her coffee cup with both hands, looking out the window as the city lights softened into quieter streets. Her heartbeat was steady now, calmer than earlier, but still fast with excitement. Every few minutes she glanced at Daniel, as if making sure he was still there, still real, still willing to let her into his world. Daniel drove with quiet focus, his hands steady on the steering wheel. He kept checking the rearview mirror, not because he was nervous, but because the Billionaire's security team followed at a distance, making sure she was safe without hovering too close. It felt strange for him. He was a simple man, earning simple money, living a simple life. And now he was driving through the city with one of the most protected young women in the country sitting in his old car, trusting him more than she trusted the entire world. She watched the street signs pass by, wondering what his home looked like. She imagined something warm, full of drawings, toys, maybe soft music she wouldn't hear but could feel. A place where someone small laughed freely. She signed quietly, "Is your daughter home?" He nodded. "Yes. Her grandma picked her from school. They are waiting for us." She smiled softly, imagining the scene. Daniel noticed the curiosity in her eyes and signed. "She is shy at first, but she will like you." She shook her head modestly, signing, "What if she doesn't?" He smiled gently. "She will. You speak her language." Those words warmed her heart in a way she didn't expect. All her life she had felt that her silence built walls around her. But with Daniel and his little girl, silence was not a barrier, it was a bridge. When they reached his apartment building, she looked around curiously. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't expensive. But it felt alive. Kids were playing in the courtyard. Someone was cooking somewhere nearby. She could smell spices in the air. A woman was watering flowers on a balcony, giving them life with each drop of water. She loved it instantly. It felt real. It felt human. It felt like a world she had never been allowed to experience. Daniel parked his car and got out, walking around to open her door. It startled her. No one ever opened doors for her except guards or chauffeurs. But the way he did it was different. Not because she was rich. Not because she was special. But because he was kind. She stepped out and followed him upstairs. When he unlocked the door, a small girl ran to him, her eyes lighting up the moment she saw her father. She was tiny, with soft hair tied in a small ponytail, wearing a paint-stained shirt and mismatched socks. She jumped into Daniel's arms, hugging him tightly. "Daddy!" she signed with excited hands. Daniel lifted her with ease, spinning her once before putting her down. Then the little girl noticed the guest standing quietly behind him. She stared at the billionaire's daughter with big, curious eyes. The woman's heart softened instantly, and she knelt down slowly to be at eye level with the child. She signed gently, "Hi. I'm happy to meet you." The little girl's eyes widened in surprise. She wasn't used to strangers signing. Most adults didn't know how. But this woman signed beautifully, clearly, kindly. The little girl smiled shyly and signed back, "Hi." Then she pointed at her drawing board. "Want to see what I made?" The young woman nodded eagerly. Daniel watched them with a soft smile, amazed by how naturally they connected. His daughter led her toward the living room, pulling her by the hand with childish excitement. The billionaire's daughter looked around the small apartment. The cozy sofa, the colorful drawings taped to the wall, the stack of building blocks near the rug. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't perfect. But she loved it. It felt like a home full of laughter, full of emotion, full of life. His daughter proudly held up a chalkboard with a picture scribbled in bright colors. A stick figure girl with long hair standing with a stick figure man, both smiling, with the sun shining above them. The woman smiled widely and signed, "It's beautiful." The little girl blushed and hid behind Daniel shyly. "She likes you," Daniel signed. She nodded, her heart swelling with warmth. She had never felt accepted so quickly, so purely. The girl tugged her shirt and pointed to the toy blocks on the floor. "Play." She looked up at Daniel for permission. He smiled and nodded. She sat on the floor with the little girl, helping her build a tower of colorful blocks. Every time the tower fell, the girl giggled, and the woman laughed silently too, her shoulders shaking, her eyes crinkling, her whole face glowing. Daniel watched them from the kitchen doorway, leaning quietly against the wall. For the first time in many years, his home felt lighter. He saw happiness on his daughter's face, but he also saw something else, his daughter wasn't the only one healing. The young woman, who had lived her entire life inside a protective bubble, was finally breathing freely. She was laughing. She was opening up. She was living. After a while, Daniel brought them juice. The little girl sat on her lap now, completely comfortable, showing her drawings proudly. The young woman held the notebook gently, signing with soft gestures, "You are very talented." The little girl giggled and hid her face against her shoulder. Daniel blinked, confused for a moment. It was rare for his daughter to trust someone this fast. The young woman looked at Daniel and signed quietly, "She is precious." Daniel felt something warm in his chest. For a moment, he forgot about the difference in their worlds. She didn't look like the billionaire's daughter anymore. She looked like a kind-hearted woman sitting in his living room, fitting into his world in a way he never expected anyone to. They talked through signs while the little girl played on the floor. She told him about how lonely she felt growing up, how she always wanted a friend who understood her. He told her about his struggles, about working 2 jobs, about raising a deaf child alone, about learning sign language late at night so his daughter wouldn't feel lost. She felt her chest tighten with emotion. Because through all their differences, they shared one thing deeply, the desire to protect someone they loved. Hours passed without either of them noticing. Time didn't feel heavy. It flowed smoothly, like water, like something that was meant to happen. But eventually, her father texted again. "It's getting late. Come home." She sighed softly, her eyes dimming. She signed to Daniel, "I have to go." He nodded, though he felt something inside him sink a little. The little girl ran to her, hugging her tightly. She hugged back, closing her eyes, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in years, a warmth of belonging. Daniel walked her to the door. She paused, turning toward him. She wanted to say something, something meaningful, something that captured everything she felt, but words were too small. So she signed gently, slowly, "Thank you for today. It changed me." Daniel swallowed, surprised by how deeply her words touched him. "You're welcome," he signed back. "You're stronger than you think." She smiled, shy and emotional. Then she added something she didn't plan to say, something that slipped out from her heart before she could stop it. "Can I see you again?" Daniel blinked, stunned, then nodded almost instantly. "Anytime." She left with her heart racing, her cheeks warm, her mind spinning. As she walked down the hallway toward her father's waiting car, she couldn't stop smiling. And Daniel, standing in the doorway, watched her go with a strange ache in his chest. A soft ache he hadn't felt in a long time. In that small apartment, in that short afternoon, something had changed. Something deep. Something quiet. Something powerful. And neither of them knew it yet. But this was only the beginning. When she returned home that night, everything around her felt heavier than before. The tall gates, the long driveway, the mansion glowing with expensive lights that never made her feel warm. The guards opened the door for her, but she stepped inside slowly, almost unwillingly, like she was walking back into a cage she had escaped only for a few precious hours. Her father was waiting in the living room, standing near the window, staring out into the night like he'd been thinking for hours. When he heard her footsteps, he turned around. His eyes softened the moment he saw her, but she could still see a mix of worry and confusion behind them. She stood quietly, unsure if he would scold her or thank her or question her decisions. She didn't want to fight, not after such a beautiful day. She signed gently, "I'm safe." He nodded. "I know." She hesitated, then signed again, "I met his daughter. She is wonderful." Her father studied her face, the glow in her eyes, the softness in her smile. Things he hadn't seen in a long time. He walked closer, signing slowly, "You look happy." She looked down, biting her lip as her fingers moved. "I felt normal today." Her father's chest tightened. All the money in the world couldn't buy her that. He nodded silently, realizing how long she had been craving something he didn't know how to give her. And when he remembered the way Daniel had stayed with her, protected her, understood her, he felt something unusual for a man like him: gratitude. Meanwhile, Daniel had put his daughter to bed, tucking her in gently after she fell asleep with a smile on her face. She whispered "new friend" in sign language before closing her eyes. Daniel sat on the edge of her bed for a moment, watching her sleep peacefully. Then his mind drifted back to the woman who had sat on his living room floor earlier that day, laughing silently with his daughter. He had never seen someone fit into his world so easily, especially someone from such a different life. He stood there quietly in the dim hallway, wondering why her face kept coming back into his thoughts, why her smile kept replaying in his mind, and why her gentle hands signing "thank you for today" felt like something he didn't want to forget. He tried to push the thoughts aside. He was just a single dad trying to survive. She was the daughter of a billionaire who lived in a world completely separate from his. They came from different planets, different skies, different everything. But his heart didn't understand boundaries. His heart only remembered how she looked at him, with trust, with gratitude, with something soft and new. And he couldn't ignore that. Back in her mansion, she sat on her bed with her knees pulled up to her chest, thinking about the little girl who hugged her, the warmth in Daniel's eyes, the simple apartment that felt more like home than any room in the giant mansion. She remembered how Daniel looked surprised when she asked, "Can I see you again?" and how he answered with a smile that made her chest feel light. She touched her fingertips to her lips, remembering the way her face had warmed when he smiled back. She had never felt that before. Not with the rich boys her father tried to introduce her to. Not with the tutors. Not with anyone. They all saw her father's money before they saw her. But Daniel, he saw her silence before her name. He saw her heart before her background. He protected her without asking anything in return. She fell asleep that night holding the drawing his daughter had given her. A small picture of 3 stick figures standing together under the sun. And for the first time in years, she slept peacefully. The next morning, her father knocked softly on her door. She opened it, surprised to see him holding a notepad, something he used long ago before he learned basic sign language. He wrote something and handed it to her. "If you want to visit him again, I will allow it." Her heart leaped. She looked up at him with wide eyes, shocked. He signed, "You deserve a life outside. I cannot protect you forever, but I can choose the right people to trust." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. He signed again, slower this time, "Daniel seems like a good man." She nodded eagerly. She signed back, "He is. He really is." Her father sighed, not entirely relaxed but willing to try. "I will reduce your security," he signed. "But they will follow from distance." She nodded again. She understood. She wasn't angry at him. She knew he was trying. That afternoon, as Daniel washed dishes in his kitchen, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He hesitated before answering, wiping his hands on a towel. "Hello?" he said cautiously. A deep voice replied, "Daniel, this is her father." Daniel froze, unsure if he should sit, stand, or jump out a window. He stood stiffly. "Sir, the father interrupted gently, "Relax. I just wanted to say thank you." Daniel blinked, stunned. "I didn't do much." "You did," the billionaire said. "You helped her breathe. That means everything to me." Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm glad she felt safe." Her father paused, then added, "She wants to see you again. And I want her to have a life. So, if you are willing, you may spend time with her." Daniel felt something warm bloom in his chest. Hope, surprise, fear, all mixed together. "I'd be honored," he said softly. "But I want to be clear. I don't want anything from you. I don't want money." "I know," the father said. "That's why I trust you." After the call ended, Daniel stood there stunned, gripping his phone tightly. He felt something shifting in his life, something he didn't expect, something he wasn't sure he deserved, something he didn't want to lose. Meanwhile, she stood near the window of her room, waiting anxiously, her heart pounding as she waited for confirmation. When her phone buzzed, she opened the message instantly. It was from Daniel. "I'd like to see you again too." She pressed her hand to her chest, a big smile forming on her lips. The world suddenly felt brighter, lighter. warmer. 1 hour with him had opened a door she had been too afraid to knock on her entire life. And now that the door was open, she wasn't going to let it close again. Daniel checked the time and sent another message. "Can I bring my daughter? She wants to show you her new drawing." She typed back instantly, "Yes." Then added, "I want to show her something too." She opened her drawer and took out a small notebook. She began drawing quietly, her hands moving quickly, her smile soft, her heart full. She didn't know where this path would lead. She didn't know what her father would think long-term. She didn't know if the world would understand two silent hearts learning to speak through signs. But she knew one thing for sure. She wanted Daniel and his daughter in her life. Not because she was lonely. Not because she needed help. But because, for the first time, someone understood her without trying to fix her. Someone saw her without looking at her last name. Someone heard her without using sound. And that kind of connection was rare, precious, and worth fighting for. She whispered in her mind, in the silence of her world, "I hope this lasts." Because deep down, she felt it already. This was no longer just a meeting. This was the start of something beautiful. The next afternoon, the sun was warm and gentle, spreading soft golden light across the neighborhood as she stepped out of the mansion gate. Her heart beat fast, not from fear this time, but from anticipation. She kept checking her phone every few seconds even though she had already read Daniel's message 10 times. "We're on the way." Just those words made her feel lighter than the air around her. For someone whose life had always been controlled, monitored, and planned by others, simply waiting to see someone by choice felt strangely powerful. She hugged her small drawing notebook to her chest, holding it as if it carried something precious. And it did. Inside was a drawing she made for Daniel's daughter. Something small. Something simple. Something from her heart. As she stood near the gate, one of the guards stepped forward, ready to guide her back inside, but she shook her head firmly. Her father had agreed to this. She was going to meet Daniel again. She didn't need anyone pulling her away from the one place she wanted to be. The guard nodded respectfully and stepped back. A few cars drove past, but none of them mattered. She kept looking for the familiar old car Daniel drove. And when it finally turned the corner, she immediately straightened, her heart pounding with a nervous excitement she didn't know how to hide. Daniel parked near the curb, stepping out with a soft smile that warmed her entire world. His daughter hopped out next, clutching her little backpack full of drawings. The young woman's face brightened the second she saw them. She walked toward them with small, excited steps that made her look younger, softer, freer. Daniel signed to her gently, "Hi. Good to see you." She signed back quickly, her hands moving with joy. "You came." His daughter ran to her immediately, wrapping her tiny arms around her waist. She knelt down to return the hug, her face glowing with happiness. Then she opened her notebook and showed the little girl her drawing, 2 hands signing the word friend surrounded by bright colors. The girl's eyes sparkled with delight, and she signed, "For me." The young woman nodded shyly. The child hugged the notebook tightly to her chest as if someone had handed her a treasure. Daniel watched the moment silently, his heart swelling in a way he didn't understand. He had lived through loneliness, hardship, exhaustion. He knew what it meant to fight every day. But seeing 2 people from completely different worlds bonding so purely, it touched a place inside him he thought had long been numb. He signed softly to her, "Thank you. She loves it." She smiled, her eyes shimmering with emotion. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, 2 souls who understood silence better than sound. They walked toward the nearby park together, Daniel carrying his daughter in one arm while she walked beside them, close enough that their shoulders brushed every now and then. Every time it happened, her heart fluttered just a little. At the park, the little girl ran to the swings, signing excitedly, "Push me." The young woman followed her with a bright smile, gently pushing the swing as the girl giggled silently, her head thrown back in joy. Daniel stood a few steps away, watching them with soft eyes. It was the first time he had seen someone else make his daughter laugh that much. And it wasn't forced. It was natural, warm, real. She played with the girl, helped her down the slide, even taught her how to make a heart shape with her hands. Every time their eyes met, Daniel saw something gentle in her. Something that told him she wasn't just here to escape her loneliness, she genuinely cared. After a while, they sat together on a bench while the girl drew in her new notebook. The breeze was soft, the park quiet, and the sunlight warm against their faces. She signed to him slowly, "I had fun yesterday." Daniel smiled, signing back, "Me too." She hesitated, then signed again, her fingers trembling slightly, "I liked being in your home." He swallowed a small breath, surprised by how sincere she looked. He signed, "You fit in easily. My daughter liked you instantly." She looked down, her cheeks warming. "I liked her too. She's beautiful." Daniel nodded proudly. "She's my whole world." Something tugged softly inside her chest. She signed quietly, "You are a good father." Daniel froze. No one said those words to him. Not even the people close to him. He looked at her, his heart tight with emotion he didn't expect to feel. Before he could respond, his daughter came running with a new drawing. It was a picture of 3 people: Daniel, the little girl, and her, holding hands. Underneath, the little girl wrote in uneven letters, "My family friend." Tears suddenly filled the young woman's eyes. Not sad tears, just deep, overwhelming warmth. She hugged the girl tight, closing her eyes as her heart melted completely. Daniel watched them, feeling something bloom inside him, something dangerous and beautiful at the same time. He was afraid of it, yet drawn to it. When the girl ran off to play again, the young woman looked at Daniel and signed something she didn't plan, something that came straight from her heart. "You make me feel safe." Daniel stared at her, stunned. His throat tightened. He signed slowly, deliberately, "You deserve to feel safe. Always." She blinked back tears. She had waited her whole life for someone to say that. They sat in quiet understanding until her father's car appeared at the edge of the park. Her heart tightened with disappointment, but she didn't panic this time. She looked at Daniel and signed softly, "I don't want this to end." He looked at her for a long moment, really looking, before signing back, "It doesn't have to." Her father stepped out, watching them with a cautious but calmer expression than yesterday. He saw the way she smiled. He saw the way Daniel stood protectively but respectfully beside her. He saw the way his granddaughter-like girl held her hand so tightly. And something inside him softened. He approached them, nodding slightly to Daniel. She waited nervously, her heart pounding. Her father signed to her privately, "You look happy." She nodded deeply, her entire heart in that movement. Her father exhaled quietly, then turned to Daniel. "If you want," he said gently, "you can both come to our home tomorrow. As guests." Daniel blinked, stunned. Her eyes widened in disbelief, then filled with joy so bright it transformed her entire face. She looked at Daniel instantly. He saw the hope in her eyes, the need, the fear, the excitement. He couldn't say no. He smiled softly and signed, "We'll come." Her father nodded approvingly. The little girl clapped her hands happily, holding onto the young woman like she didn't want to let go. And as Daniel walked her back to her father's car, something quietly shifted inside both of them. Something too strong to ignore, too gentle to break, too deep to explain with words or signs. It was a connection born in silence. And it was growing fast. Faster than either of them expected. Faster than either of them knew how to handle. But neither of them wanted it to stop. Not now. Not ever. The next day arrived with a strange softness in the air, as if the world itself knew something important was going to happen. She stood near the window of her mansion, hands pressed lightly against the glass, watching the driveway with nervous eyes. She wasn't scared today. She wasn't hiding today. Today she was waiting, with hope, with excitement, with a quiet kind of courage she had never felt before. She touched her heart gently, remembering Daniel's hand signing, "It doesn't have to end." Her cheeks warmed at the memory. It had been years since anything made her feel this alive. Her father entered the room quietly, watching her for a moment before stepping closer. He signed softly, You seem very happy today. She nodded with a smile she couldn't hide. He hesitated, then signed again. I want this to be good for you. She looked at him with grateful eyes, moving closer to hug him, a gesture she hadn't made in a long time. He placed a hand on her head, his heart softer than he expected. You deserve freedom, he added. You deserve people who care about you. She pulled back and signed, Thank you, Dad. Outside, the guard at the gate signaled that Daniel's car had arrived. Her heart jumped. The moment she had been waiting for suddenly felt real, present, overwhelming in the best way. She rushed downstairs, her long dress flowing behind her like liquid air. The guards opened the door just as Daniel stepped out of his car, holding his daughter's hand. He looked slightly nervous. His clothes were simple but neat, his hair combed as if he had tried harder than usual. He wasn't used to a world like hers. He wasn't used to stepping into a billionaire's home. But when he saw her standing at the doorway, smiling softly, every worry in his chest loosened. She stepped out onto the porch, her expression glowing with gentle excitement. She welcomed them with open hands and warm eyes. The little girl ran to her instantly, hugging her leg as if they had been friends for years. She knelt and hugged her back, her heart expanding with affection she had never felt for a child before. Daniel walked toward her slowly, his steps unsure but his smile steady. They both lifted their hands at the same time, signing, Hi. A small, shy laugh left her lips. His chest warmed at the sound her silence created. Not noise, but emotion. Her father stepped forward to greet them, surprising Daniel by offering a respectful handshake. Thank you for coming, he said kindly. Daniel nodded with humility. Thank you for having us. They walked inside together, the mansion glowing with warm lights instead of the cold brightness it usually carried. She guided them through the hall, showing them small things she loved. The painting her mother made, the garden her father planted for her, the quiet reading corner with pillows and soft blankets. Daniel's daughter stared in wide-eyed amazement at the tall ceilings and sparkling chandeliers. But what surprised everyone was how she didn't seem intimidated. Instead, she held the young woman's hand, walking like she belonged there. They sat in the grand living room, but it didn't feel formal. The young woman made sure it felt comfortable, sitting on the soft carpet with Daniel's daughter, showing her picture books and teaching her new signs. Daniel watched from the sofa, his eyes warm, his heart tender. He had never imagined his little girl sitting inside a billionaire's home, laughing, drawing, learning. He had never imagined a woman from such a high world sitting on the floor with his daughter as if they were equals, friends, family. Her father sat nearby, quietly observing. At first, he watched with caution. Then gradually, his expression softened into something he rarely showed, peace. He saw the way Daniel looked at his daughter, not with greed, not with desire for her fortune, but with genuine care. He saw the way his daughter looked at Daniel, not with fear, not with guarded walls, but with trust and warmth. Hours passed like minutes. They ate lunch together, and even though the table was long and expensive, Daniel and his daughter sat only a few seats away from the billionaire and his girl. They signed across the table, laughed, shared small stories. For the first time in years, the mansion didn't feel cold. It felt alive. Later, she took Daniel and his daughter out to the garden behind the mansion. A garden full of flowers she had planted to feel less lonely. She showed them her secret corner where she sat to paint, a wooden bench under a willow tree. Daniel's daughter climbed onto the bench and opened her notebook, drawing the mansion with cute crooked lines. She pulled the young woman close and drew her beside the stick figure version of Daniel. When the girl finished, she lifted the notebook proudly, showing them the picture. A family of 3 under a giant tree. The young woman's eyes softened into tears. Not sadness, just emotion so deep it touched her soul. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He reached out without thinking and gently wiped the corner of her eye with his thumb. She froze at the warm touch, her breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding like a drum she couldn't hear. Daniel's hand trembled slightly, but he didn't pull away until she blinked slowly, letting him know she wasn't scared. There was no sound between them. No words. Only the quiet language of 2 hearts understanding each other. The little girl looked between them and smiled knowingly, signing innocently, "You like her?" Daniel's face flushed, and he looked away quickly. She laughed silently, her shoulders shaking as she signed back to the girl. "Maybe." Daniel covered his face in embarrassment, and she giggled again, touching his arm softly, a shy, tender touch that said more than words ever could. Her father watched from the balcony, his expression thoughtful. He saw the way they interacted, gentle, respectful, cautious, honest. He saw something forming, something precious. And even though fear tugged at him, fear of losing her, fear of trusting the wrong person, he also saw hope blooming in her eyes, something he hadn't seen in years. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with orange and pink, Daniel stood up to leave. His daughter hugged the young woman tightly one last time. She hugged her back with both arms, her heart heavy with a longing she couldn't deny. Daniel signed to her slowly, as if his hands carried something delicate, "Thank you for today." She signed back, her eyes glowing, "Thank you for coming." It meant everything. They walked toward the gate together, not ready to say goodbye yet but knowing they had to. Her father waited beside her quietly. Daniel opened the car door for his daughter, then turned to face her. Their eyes held each other like two hands clasped in silence. She lifted her hands and signed softly, "Can we meet again?" Daniel smiled, a warm, real, heartfelt smile. "Yes. Anytime you want." She breathed in deeply, feeling something bloom inside her chest that she had never let herself feel before. Something gentle. Something bright. Something hopeful. As Daniel drove away, her hands slowly lifted, waving at the car until it disappeared. Her father stepped beside her, watching her expression. After a long moment, he signed quietly, "You care about him." She nodded slowly, not denying it. "Not anymore." Her father sighed softly, then rested a gentle hand on her back. "Maybe," he signed. "He is exactly the kind of person your world needs." Her eyes filled with emotion as she looked up at the sky, feeling the breeze against her face. And deep in her heart she knew, this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of a story written in silence, guided by hands, protected by love, and destined to grow into something beautiful. Something powerful. Something worth fighting for, something real.